Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Pop Go the Writers. I completely lost track of time.
I think maybe you did.
I actually had the show set up, I had everything done, ready to go, and then I got distracted, and suddenly I saw the message from Jim going, "Are we on?" Like, shoot.
I thought, yeah, I mean, I was ready. I got up from a nap just for this. Maybe
So, yeah,
time operates differently in your universe.
we're on, we're here. It started on time.
I'm good. I can roll with it. It's all good. It's all good.
Yeah, give me 1 second. So, what have you been up to, Jim?
Wow. What have I been up to? You know what I'm having fun doing is I bought myself the complete collection of Star Trek the Animated Series.
Nice.
And I've been watching a couple of episodes a day because I'm going to write an article because it's the 50th anniversary this year. In like roughly another week and a half or so. And I can remember that Saturday morning very well of watching that first episode. So, but I realize I haven't watched those, maybe a lot of those since I was a kid. So it's been fun. It's like a wonky, weird, version of original Star Trek.
Yeah, I remember it vaguely. And what I remember about it was the doctor was a skeleton instead of McCoy, or was this red skeleton guy?
McCoy. You might be thinking of Chekhov was replaced by a character called Lieutenant Eric's, and he has 3 legs and he's kind of skeletal looking.
Okay, that might be who I'm thinking of.
Yeah. No, it's actually Dr. I read into this that it's all the actors are back or do the voices except for Walter Koenig because they couldn't afford him. The budget only allowed for so many actors, and they weren't even going to have any. They were only going to have the big 3. They were going to have Shatner, Nimoy, and Kelly. And Nimoy put his foot down and said, "No, you have to bring back the others." And they could bring back Nichelle and Doohan and George, but not Walter. So they made it up to him they actually bought a script from him. He wrote one of the episodes.
Okay.
And it's funny because like almost every other character in the show is voiced by Jimmy Doohan or Nichelle Nichols, like and Majel Barrett. Like they especially Jimmy Doohan, he does like every alien that's it just changes his voice a little bit. It is really fun though. It's like I said, it's really kind of wonky, but it is pretty fun.
Okay, yeah, I do remember the Redskin. I was not a huge Star Trek fan until I was 10 or 11 years old, which is what opened me up to a lot of things like comic books and stuff. I'd been reading comics, but I went to a convention. That's where I met Jack Kirby. Well, at the same convention, I met Carolyn Monroe and Walter Koenig.
Ah, okay.
And I got all their signatures and stuff. So I came out of that going, okay, I want to know more about this guy. I want to know more about that guy and this cute lady. So
that's why you're not in my Star Trek book.
Well, you got to remember that I'm a little younger than you. So they were already reruns when.
Technically, I mean, the TV set was on and showing first run Star Trek when I was around, but I was pretty little. I was 4 when it went off the air, and I don't have any memories of first run, but all of my Star Trek memories come from first syndication. In the very early 70s, and then I was right there, watching it. from the very beginning.
Yeah, see, my problem was that I didn't have anybody in my immediate family that was into sci-fi or stuff like that.
Yeah.
So my uncle would come to visit from Denver, and whenever he did, he would bring a gift. And one time he didn't have time to go buy something, so he stopped at the 7-Eleven, bought some comic books,
That's
and that's
nice.
how I ended up being a comic book fan.
That's nice. I love stories like that.
Yeah, Dave was a huge influence on us, and he also. I was thinking of this story the other day. I watched. I was crocheting the other night and watched the documentary on Queen making the album Night at the Opera.
Oh, wow.
With Bohemian Rhapsody and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
And it was my Uncle Dave, the same guy that introduced me to comics, that introduced me to Queen.
Mm-hmm.
He came out to visit and he bought us an 8-track, shows you how long ago it was, of Queen Live Killers.
Huh.
And I remember sitting around the living room. I had to be 8, 9 years old, maybe a little older.
Mm-hmm.
And he put it on the 8-track and introduced it to my brother and myself and my sister. And my father worked swing shift. So, he stayed in bed later and would get ready in the morning and then go off to work. And my father was never one to listen to music. When he drove, he listened to the news so he could get the traffic updates. And I couldn't tell you a band he liked. That, my mom loved Elvis and Neil Sedaka. I mean, I can go through a list. My dad, no idea. So we're listening to Queen Live Killers, and the song Bicycle Races is on. And he's going, I want to ride my bicycle, want to ride my bike. And we are cranking it. And my father comes out, and I only heard my father curse a handful of times in his entire life.
Yeah.
Comes out half shaven. He's got lather on this side of his face, clean shaven on this side. Comes out and says, let him ride his goddamn bicycle and tell him to shut up. I always remember that day.
That's great. See, no, I get almost everything that I like is from my father. I mean, any TV show that I like was because he, either had it on or he turned it on for me and said, watch this. And so that's, Star Trek and all pretty much my musical tastes come from him too. Cause he was the opposite. It was records constantly, 8 tracks and then cassettes, albums, everything that all came from him. It was my mother who was not pop culture at all. God bless her.
The weirdest thing for me was listening to Queen Live Killers. Somebody had it on cassette. Listening to it and not hearing the track change in the middle of certain songs. Because I had listened to it so much that the track changes were part of the song.
Yeah. I never understood that. Back then, my dad had an 8-track player in the car, and we'd listen to this, that, and the other thing. And I never understood why this technology existed with the clunk, and then it's like in the middle of a song. Why would anybody design anything like that? Queen was just in the news because trying to think of what it was. Some online or streaming or something or whatever has made like the best of Queen, but it's for kids, or whatever. Except of all songs, they omitted Fat Bottom Girls. Like they wouldn't allow, and their reasoning was because the lyrics were too controversial or something of that nature. And they even cited one particular lyric, and it was like, of all the things. So a friend of mine said, my God, you have Bohemian Rhapsody on there, and it has the lyric, Mama just shot a man, put a gun up to his head, pulled my trigger, now he's dead. But you can't have, it's like Fat Bottom Girls, you make the rockin' world go round or something like that, because that was like sexual. It's like, my God, have you ever listened to Queen? It's almost all sexual stuff. And it was just an odd choice. So I went out, and after I heard that, I posted on my Facebook, and I said, and by the way, Fat Bottom Girls, yes, you do make the rockin' world go round.
The one that surprised me is I hadn't really dug deep into the song Death on Two Legs.
Uh-huh.
And the documentary lays into exactly what that's about, is that they were going into making Night at the Opera, and they had gotten almost nothing for anything they had done prior. Their previous record label had screwed them big. And this was pretty much Freddie going off on them. And the whole thing is about their previous management.
Uh-huh.
And it's like, now that I listen to it, wow, he was upset.
Such a situation has made for, many different recordings from different bands, a way to complain about stuff, but then it becomes, a good hit for them.
Yeah.
So there is justice in the world. What's the documentary, by the way? Where?
I saw it on Amazon Prime.
Okay. All right. I mean, do you remember what it was called?
I don't, but it was really easy to find.
Okay.
So, and it's all about Night at the Opera.
Is it kind of newer? Is it newer?
No, it's a little bit older.
Okay.
Because Brian May still looks to be in his 50s.
Okay, like he has color in his hair?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's exactly what it is.
Okay.
And of course, Roger Taylor's on it, but John Deacon is not, because he pretty much is just sworn off the music industry.
I knew that.
The other interesting thing that came out of it is a lot of bands have the problem because they don't make as much money in the beginning. It's the music catalog. It's who wrote what. And you get certain bands that one person writes all the songs, and he's the one that gets rich.
Yeah.
Queen is the opposite of that. Queen pushed for everyone in the band to write.
I've heard that, yeah.
And John Deacon was the tough one because he didn't think any of his stuff was good.
Another one bites the dust.
I know.
Yeah.
But he wrote some great ones.
Yeah.
But, but he was the one, they had to kind of push him just so that he would continue to make money too. So it was very interesting. And I have not watched Bohemian Rhapsody, the biopic.
I haven't seen it either, and I tell myself all the time I should.
Yeah, I've seen clips. Rami Malek looks great as Freddie Mercury.
Oh yeah,
and it looks like he really put in the homework.
Yep, that's what they say. Yep.
Yeah, I need to watch that. I also need to watch the Elton John one.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that one. Sure, there's
that
one too.
So
I don't understand why there's never been anything like that of the Beatles. It must be something about the surviving members don't want something like that. But there's never truly been, a more recent big budget biopic of all the bands in the world, the Beatles. I mean, there's been things in the past, but not straight out and I'm talking about something like Bohemian Rhapsody,
Yeah.
Like just like that, or that Elton John one too, for that matter.
We did get that 2-part documentary about the making of what album was it? Where they actually play on the roof. It's a recent documentary.
That's Get Back. Yeah, it's 3. It's 3 parts. Yes. Yeah. No, that's wonderful. That was on Disney Plus. Actually, had that.
Yeah, I watched that. And what's funny is, I'm not a Beatles fan.
Okay, well,
part of it is
I can't talk to you anymore. Then
part of it is, if the music doesn't click with me, it doesn't click with me.
Sure, I understand.
But if it doesn't click with me, and everybody is around me is telling me how great it is, then I actually become turned off to it even more.
Yeah, you push back on it. Yep, I get
And
it.
the Beatles is one of those. Nirvana is another one.
Hmm.
Not a Nirvana fan at all.
Yeah, that's too recent for me. That's too new
Yeah.
for me.
Yeah.
No, see,
So
and Beatles is, like literally another thing I got from my dad, and I'm so glad I actually have memories of when a Beatles album was new. I remember when my dad got Abbey Road, the
yeah.
last Beatles album, and he'd play it a lot, so I got to know it very, very well.
Yeah. For me, my formative years, I had my mom listening to. She ended up switching into country music, which didn't click with me.
Mm.
And my brother was a metalhead,
Mm-hmm.
and he only knew how to play it at 12. So Iron Maiden, Metallica.
Wow.
So I ended up drifting towards some friends, into like Genesis and Bruce Springsteen, to stuff like that. And then when I started dating Debbie, who would become my wife, she got me into metal as well, but in kind of a different path, and showed me more of like Queensryche
Mm-hmm.
and things like that, where you could see the real talent. It
Mm-hmm.
isn't just loud noise.
Right, sure.
And then when I started learning how to play the bass, I really started appreciating a lot more bands. And
Yeah.
I'd never really gone back and looked at the Beatles until that documentary.
Yeah.
And I have a lot more respect for the Beatles now
Cool.
after that documentary.
Yeah, I
Really
got
enjoyed it.
surprised with that documentary that, that might happen. My brother is 4 years older than me, and he was into what I would now call like proto metal, because full blown heavy metal wasn't quite around yet.
Yeah.
So he was, he loved Zeppelin, of course. There's a good like lead into heavy metal, and I'm trying to think of a few other ones, but I got a few things from him, like a lot of new wave stuff. Like he liked Elvis Costello, and things like that. So I got a lot of that kind of stuff from them. And my dad was all over the map. He had Deep Purple's famous album, but he also had all the country. He loved country too.
Yeah.
So I got everything and anything from him.
Yeah. The band that I really got turned on to later in life was The Who.
Oh yeah, my brother liked them too. You know what, I like a lot of Who songs, but I could never be called a fan of them at all. It's the same with the Stones. Like a handful of songs, and that's about it.
Yeah. Again, for me, a lot of it changed when I started playing music.
Mm-hmm.
Because then I could see the technical side of it.
Sure, that makes complete sense. Yeah.
And you look at the band like The Who, and you have four guys who would be the best musician in any band that they were in.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Probably one of the best bassists of all time is John Entwistle.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Yeah.
And the funny thing about the Beatles is, and not to diminish them at all, is none of them were the greatest virtuosos of what they did or whatever. But when they always said this too, and John Lennon said it, more than once, that he said, if anything, we were just a tight little combo. Like if it was literally just the four of them sitting there playing, he said, we came together and we were this tight little, band, and we happened to make it very, very big. But I always thought that was very interesting because, like I said, you'll hear a lot about Paul McCartney being, a standout bassist and things like that. But at the end of the day, they're not a Pete Townsend. None of them are Pete Townsend.
Exactly.
And Ringo, God love him, it was not as innovative as
Keith Moon, John Bonham.
Yeah, right. So it's just funny. I mean, the Beatles had other things going on. They had the songwriting, and the creative, urge and all of that.
Yeah.
So here's the big question. Did you like the heavy metal song in Ahsoka?
It was all right.
I'm like, how's that for a segue?
Oh, it's funny. Last Monday, I had gone to the doctor, and this was a very weird conversation. Now, I have this tendency to speak to my doctors where it's very little is actually medical stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Somehow I end up talking to them about. I have a podiatrist who every time I go in there, I have to explain to him what's going on in the latest Star Wars movie or Marvel movie.
That's nice. That's called an icebreaker.
Yeah, so he waits for me to come in, and he's like, "All right." So it's like I see him another week. He'll be asking me about Ahsoka.
Yeah.
But I hadn't really done it with this other doctor who I've been seeing a lot. And then I was talking about how my mother was going to help with the bandages, and we were talking about that.
Yeah.
He goes, your mother came in one time. I went, yeah. She goes, she had purple hair, right? I said, yeah, because my mom has gray hair, but she dyes like a strip of it color.
Mm-hmm.
And for Christmas, it's red and green. And at the time he met her, it was purple. Sometimes she does rainbow.
Mm-hmm.
And we started talking about his kids and how they're doing the punk stuff that they used to do. And somehow we got into talking about Robert Smith, because I saw a recent picture of Robert Smith from The Cure,
Mm-hmm.
and how he still has the whacked out hair, but it's now thin and gray. And it's like, go ahead and brush that, cut it.
Yeah.
And we started talking about music, and somehow we got into Gene Simmons and how Gene Simmons is one of the best businessmen to ever run a band, but he's one of the worst bass players ever.
Poor Gene.
And
we're all good at something.
I ended up going from the exam room to his office and spending about 45 minutes talking about music with the doctor. It's like,
wow.
So yeah, it was a strange.
When I first the first second that rock song comes on in Ahsoka, I was pushing back at that. I was like, no, you can't do that. You don't do that in Star Wars. And then I was like, I had to remind myself. Well, wait, no. Then I realized that it wasn't in the soundtrack, that she was supposedly listening to it. And then I went, okay, all right, take a step back from the edge. And then I thought, I had to remind myself, okay, Lopty Neck exists in Star Wars, and then Jedi Rocks took Lopty Neck's place. And I'm like, okay, all right, we're cool. All right, we're good. There's some precedent here. And then I thought, it's kind of fun, actually. I guess it's a real group, maybe, or something like that. But it has alien, lyrics, just like Lopty Neck does, and Jedi Rocks, for that matter.
Yeah, no, I didn't have a problem with that.
I did until I realized that it was actually like she was listening to it.
Well, put it this way: it didn't affect me so much that I was flipping through TikTok and somebody had taken the scene and replaced the music with the Beastie Boys, and it. I had to stop for a minute and think, was that already in there? Did they use that? So
I don't know the first damn thing about the Beastie Boys, but didn't they have a big hit called like
Sabotage?
No. Is it them who didn't they use something just in the Guardians of the Galaxy movie? Wasn't it called Galactic or something like that? Or
it's Sabotage.
Is it Sabotage? I thought it was actually called Galactic or something.
No, it's called Sabotage. It's also in the third Star Trek movie with Chris Pine.
Okay, that I wouldn't know because I didn't see that. Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay.
With it being used in Star Trek, there's a moment that that all of the aliens are communicating through a sound wave, and they blast it over the same frequency to disorient all of them.
Oh,
so it's used for a reason.
Okay.
So
let's see.
Hollywood needs to learn there's other songs other than Sabotage.
Okay. That song is called Igyaka, an original rock song Tudson BM14 on lead vocals. I don't know if that's.
Sounds like a droid.
I know, right? But
Yeah.
it's called Igya Ka, and it was made for the episode, which is fine.
All right, so we're into Ahsoka now. What did you think?
I very much enjoyed it to the point where I actually rewatched both episodes, which I don't do much anymore. And I only had a couple little reservations, mostly about it, a little bit about acting, and then another reservation about how they're portraying Ahsoka herself.
Uh-huh.
But other than that, I mean, I'm the guy who hasn't watched Clone Wars, hasn't watched Rebels, and I was following along just fine. To me, the things that I needed to know were there, and if I want to go look up other stuff, it would just add some more layers, to it. Otherwise, I mean, if anything, I mean, I watched her appearances in the other shows, so that was what I needed to know,
Yeah.
My one concern is that Ahsoka so far in these two episodes, and actually kind of in her other two appearances, she's kind of one note. Like, and I like Rosario Dawson very, very much, and I like her in the part, but she tends to, like, Ahsoka is almost always this. Arms crossed, kind of, standing back, a little smug in a way, but it's like, I hope we're gonna see, I want her to be given something that she can show her acting chops,
Yeah.
but there's a lot of that like, it's literally that same pose
Yeah.
through the whole thing. And then it was so funny, it was in the first episode, the actress who plays Hera, I thought she was kind of not good. And then by the second episode, I realized that it was more that she wasn't being given anything to do with. And then it kicked in the second episode, and I realized that I liked her. I like the actress who plays Sabine just fine. I think she's good. Otherwise, man, I liked the existing characters from the animated shows, and I really like the new characters. I really liked our two, whatever the hell they are. I'm calling them Dark Jedi, but that's not really what they are.
Yeah, the Jedi mercenary.
Yeah.
Skull and Hottie.
I understand why they got the name Hottie, but I wish they wouldn't have, because all that sounds like is like, she's a real hottie.
Yeah, I know.
It's like, I understand the references to the whose wolves are they in mythology?
They're just Norse mythology. They're
that's it.
The wolves that chase the sun across the sky.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
Because when I first heard her name, I went, "Is that really her name? Like Hottie, like Hottie? Like, that's weird." And then it's Hot Tea.
Yeah, Hot Tea.
Or Hot Tea.
Yeah. I'm a little mixed on the series.
Okay.
And I think this is my theory.
Yep.
If you know nothing about Rebels and Clone Wars, you're going to love this series. If you know Clone Wars and Rebels backwards and forwards, you're going to love this series.
Okay.
If you know a little bit about Clone Wars and a little bit about Rebels, no.
That's me.
No, I think you're in that first category.
Okay. I pretty much agree. Yes.
If you know backgrounds and stuff, and a character comes up and you research them and stuff, you're going to be
Okay.
Because you changed my mind. I literally thought that they didn't give us enough explanation on characters
Hmm.
in this series.
Hmm.
And then I saw your post that
Uh-oh.
said that you don't know Rebels and Clone Wars, but you felt that you got enough to follow along.
I did, yeah.
And I realized I know just enough to know what's not being told.
Okay, I see what you mean by that. I can see where you're coming from, and then that makes it a little frustrating.
Yes.
Okay.
So I think they're doing a good job with this.
Hmm.
I think this is on me for knowing as much as I do without knowing everything.
Okay. I
It's
was
like,
trying to call out to the people who are almost purposely frustrating themselves, and I know one in particular who are making it difficult for themselves by saying, I don't know any of this stuff, I don't know any of it at all, like it's an automatic kind of knee-jerk reaction. And it's like, if you think about it, you don't really have to. You know that there's a past history with this group and Ahsoka, this group of characters in Ahsoka. You know that the character of Ezra is gone. We already know that Ahsoka's looking for a big bad that disappeared a while ago because of Ezra. I mean,
mhm,
and from what I understand now, the whole thing about Sabine once at least beginning to train with Ahsoka is something we didn't really, nobody really saw. It happened
yeah,
kind of in between Rebels and now, or whatever. So we're all kind of in the same boat, with
yeah.
that. Am I correct in that the final shots of the second episode duplicate a scene from
The
the,
final
I guess,
finale of Rebels
pardon me. Okay,
almost
so
duplicates it.
that means that back then when people saw that in Rebels, they didn't know exactly when that scene took place, but now they do.
You can tell that it's later in the future,
Okay.
but and there are some differences,
Yeah,
like
it's
how
like
Ahsoka's
Ahsoka's
dressed.
dressed differently, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
but overall, it's a pretty good matchup. Um, See, what some of the things that frustrated me is like they're not really giving us any of the history of Ezra, why Sabine, why it's so important for her to
Hmm.
find him. Nothing about Kanan Jarrus, and
Yeah,
Hera's
right,
ex.
right,
The
right.
fact that Hera is supposed to have a kid. We don't,
I heard. See,
it,
now those are things that I found out. Now that, I mean, that didn't really have any bearing on anything so
yeah,
far. I'm assuming that the whole Ezra thing is just something that they haven't gotten to yet. That's I mean, we
yeah,
can see the actor; he's there in the hologram. We assume that we're going to see more of him. They're going to catch up with him at some point,
yeah.
which leads me to this question: what do you think about the whole Marok thing? The guy that looks like a Sith Inquisitor, because I
Um,
I was trying to complicate that more than it is, and it seems like it's not as complicated. I thought it was going to be a big mystery that he's somebody that we should know, and now I'm getting the sense that it's not really supposed to be that.
I've seen some of the theories online.
Yeah.
I kind of got the same idea that it's going to be somebody we know because we're not really hearing him talk.
Yeah. Right.
He's covered.
Yep.
Uh, he appears to be an inquisitor,
Well.
but we don't know for sure. He's not called brother this or brother that.
Right.
So I came out of it thinking he could be somebody. And the two theories I've seen,
Mm.
one is that he's Ezra Bridger.
That's the one. Seems to be the popular one. Yeah.
The other one is that he's Starkiller.
That's one that I actually looked into a little bit more when I heard about it, and that's going to be pretty odd because that's from a video game, right? Okay.
Yes. But we've seen other video game things come into the live action.
I get it. This would be odd because here's my reasoning. In order for a reveal of who he is to mean something, it just can't, it has to be shown in live action. It has
Mhm.
to be shown here or somewhere for it to mean anything at all. Like literally, if it's revealed that he's this Star Killer character whose name it was Marok. Did I get that right? But maybe
It's a
spelled.
different spelling, yeah.
Okay.
It's
Well, as soon as I heard
Marek.
that, wow. Okay.
He's also Darth Vader's old apprentice, so
Yeah.
that would make sense with Ahsoka there.
Yeah. Um, I again, they're going to have to start to introduce those concepts before the reveal, because otherwise, if you reveal it and then you go, well, who the hell's that? And then you sit there and have to do a big info dump after that, then that's not
Well,
going to
they
be.
do, but they don't, because if it is Merrick, if it is Starkiller,
Yeah.
the actor who played Starkiller is a fan favorite.
Okay.
Sam Witwer.
Okay.
He also voiced Darth Maul in the Clone Wars series.
Okay.
So having him appear would still make a lot of people happy.
Okay.
And for some reason, his name is in the credits.
Okay, right. There is, but isn't there? But they also have told us who this guy is playing Merrick, like the stunt person.
They told us the stunt double.
Yeah. Okay.
So he could just be, well, Pedro Pascal plays the Mandalorian, but there's two other stunt doubles.
Sure. Yeah, I get that. I won't be too happy if there's not some previous explanation, and again, because it won't mean anything right now. To me, the only thing that would mean anything would it for it to be Ezra, because we've gotten Ezra already introduced. He's already in the thing, as a hologram and talked about, and he's in that mural and all of that. I guess that's maybe a little bit too on the nose at this point, like, and then you'd have to ask, like, well, how the hell did he get to that point? Like, is he brainwashed or,
See, I think Starkiller makes more sense.
Okay.
Because he's kind of a mirror for Ahsoka.
Okay.
And you've got 6 more episodes.
Yep.
This is an 8-episode series, so you've got the time to set it up.
Yep.
And when they did the video game, Sam Witwer did all the graphics for it.
Okay.
So if you know the game, you're going to see the guy, you're going to go, Starkiller.
In your opinion, because I heard somebody say this, it might have been in my Easter egg video I watched, that character is way too powerful to have introduced into the real Star Wars universe, or
yes and no.
Okay.
He's a clone. Starkiller is a clone of an apprentice for Vader.
Okay.
And he gets killed in the video game, I believe. So it's possible this could just be another clone.
I asked myself that I said maybe it's a clone of somebody that we know. Want to hear my crazy clone theory? It's a clone of Luke.
That would be interesting.
Because that would fit in with the original novels that this is kind of inspired by. There was a clone of Luke. I think he had 2 U's in the name. It was like Luuke or something like that.
Well, Luke's original last name.
I don't think they can't keep using Luke. I don't think, it's like, I don't know how many times you can pull that out of the bag. Although this is true also, and this is the Avengers problem. It's like in the MCU, how many times where something's going on in one of the movies or one of the TV shows, and you go, "There's no way in the world that the Avengers don't show up for this." It's of course because they can't.
Yeah.
So, but I think it's absolutely true in this. I can't imagine what the reasoning would be that Luke is not starting to feel all of this going on in the Force with these two new people, these bad people coming out of nowhere,
Right. Now,
So
it could be that, they're going to bring the character in, but not the actual game.
Mm-hmm.
And they could make, well, I mean, Luke was originally, before he was Skywalker, he was Luke Starkiller.
Right, exactly.
So it is possible that maybe Vader collected his hand from when they battled with Bespin,
Cloud City. Yep.
Cloud City, and maybe cloned from that. So Starkiller is partly a clone of Luke and partly a clone of somebody else. Mixed and to make him more loyal. I don't know. But I mean, the potential is there to be something like that, and would make a really good villain for Ahsoka.
Okay. I'm so glad we have 8 episodes.
Yeah, they're definitely doing something with the character. So, another thing that bugs me about it, and again, this is no fault of the series, I like the 2 episodes, but things that hit me during it. Ray Stevenson.
Yeah.
Every time he's on screen, he is just so good that I feel horrible. Thinking that this is it. This is it's kind of like, watching the What If episode when it's the last one Chadwick Boseman recorded. There's a melancholiness to it.
Sure. I guess I can only say, like, what a way to go, to have this be one of your, the last things that you do. I am, getting more and more interested in both of them, for that matter. I've seen something in her that I feel like at some point she's going to betray him. I can see something going on behind her eyes or whatever that's questioning things like, why are we doing this? Why are we following this woman? But of course she's not going to say that. She's the apprentice, of course. But I just feel like she could turn.
I think she is.
And it's going to be interesting to see if his character is dispatched, by the end of this, because then you have the, like, well, that's unfortunate. We can't have that character anymore, if he's not taken care of.
Yeah. See, I look at it this way. I think he was raised as a Jedi.
Yep.
And with Order 66, the fall of the Jedi, he's become something of a disillusioned Jedi.
Yeah.
He's become a mercenary.
Yeah.
He's still trained in the ways. And it looks like he does a few dark side things, but not that much. He does the Force choke at one point. But other than that, he doesn't do anything.
Right.
She seems like somebody who's being trained in the ways to use the Force, but not necessarily in the dogma that would keep her on the light side. So I see her going to the dark side.
Yeah.
Where I think he still has that ingrained in him. And there's a good chance the two of them will end up at opposite sides at the end of this.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. I think they're going to need to be careful that his story is different enough from it's funny, I've already forgotten the character name from Obi-Wan Kenobi. This fourth sister, Reva, because that was her backstory too, trained, at the Jedi Temple. Now she was younger, but still,
yeah,
and then becomes, disillusioned, and then falls in, with the Inquisitors.
Yeah, see, I get the equivalent. He was a contemporary to Anakin Skywalker.
I would think so too, given what his age appears to be. Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't think it's the same story. I think, I think he was probably on a deep space assignment or something. So Order 66 didn't affect him, but that's the only thing I can think of.
How do you think Anakin comes into this as a flashback, you think?
Yeah, I think we'll get flashbacks. And I think that's how, if it is Starkiller, that it'll come in through there as well.
Oh, okay. Well, that makes sense. Yep. Yes, indeed. Yeah.
So, but again, we're 2 episodes in. There's still so much more.
There is. There is. I had to laugh when we get this whole thing about another galaxy, a far off galaxy, and I went, "Oh my God, it's our galaxy!" Like, no, don't do that. don't bring us into this.
Suddenly, it's Battlestar Galactica. We're going to Earth.
I mean, right? No, worse yet, Galactica 8, 1980.
Yes. Yeah, when we didn't even have the regular cast.
Right. Yes, that's absolutely right. Or wait a minute, I think Adama is in. No, Adama is in it. I think Lauren Green is in it. Other than that, it's like Kent McCord and other people.
You know who I feel sorry for?
Huh?
Kevin Tighe.
Okay.
Because I grew up watching Emergency and Adam 12.
Yeah.
And I remember Martin Milner, Kent McCord, Randolph Mantooth, and I can never remember Kevin Tighe's name.
Yeah. He's like the other guy from Bosom Buddies.
Yeah.
That nobody remembers. I always feel bad for him. Like, Tom Hanks became a superstar.
I do remember Peter Scolaro.
Okay.
But he went on to be in Newhart. So
right.
He was also a juggler.
Okay.
He used to do the network star thing where they would do like circus events and stuff, and he was always juggling.
Okay.
So, yeah, I know. But all right. So let's move on from Ahsoka.
Okay.
Blue Beetle.
Oh, right. That came out, didn't it?
Yeah. The Star Wars 78, 7.8 and 9 even canon.
Yes.
Star Wars 78. Oh, yeah. There's a question now about whether we might end up going to different multiverses, and that 789 they might erase 789. I don't think they're going to.
No, because everything that's been going on since Mandalorian season 1 seems to be like telling us how we get to 7, 8, and 9. So I don't know. They're not going to do that. Take 3 whole movies.
You mean that somehow Palpatine returned?
Yes. I never had a problem with that line or anything at all, because they didn't know. Of course, it would be mysterious to them. They didn't know.
Yeah.
And now we're finding out,
It's like for me with the zombie apocalypse movies. It's like they never need to know how the zombie apocalypse happened. They're not scientists.
Yeah.
They weren't there. They just need to stay alive.
Exactly right. Yeah. All they need to know is that these things are walking around eating people.
So I'm assuming you have not seen Blue Beetle.
I have not seen Blue Beetle. I found out what I wanted to know. That the only thing that was important to me is to find out that yes, there is connections with the 2 previous Blue Beetles.
Yep.
And I was glad to hear that. Although from what I understand, they don't actually appear in any way but they're talked about.
Their costumes appear.
Yeah, is okay.
And then in the end credit scene, spoilers for anybody who hasn't seen it. Let me put that up real quick. They get a message from Ted Kord at the very end.
Oh, okay.
But it's not a visual message; it's a voice message.
Okay, that's what I heard. And the bug is in it.
Archie, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. It's called Archie.
Wait, is his Archie or is it
Watchmen?
Watchmen is Archie. You're right.
Yeah, Archimedes.
Yeah, I guess.
I was gonna say, wait a minute. That hurt my head because the night owls, night night ship thing or whatever, it comes from Blue Beetle, and now it
Yeah.
would come back full circle. Like, no, wait a minute, that hurts my head. That doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
Okay,
Because DC told Alan Moore no, he couldn't use the new Charlton characters they just bought.
right. And from what I understand, the Scarab or Kaji Da is actually in it, because that's what the original Blue Beetle
Yep.
had to say that to change.
Right. Where it in the current version in the comics, Kaji Da is actually the serial number for that Scarab.
Okay.
And it took the name from the serial number.
Okay.
So,
And so they actually say Dan Garrett then.
yes.
Okay.
I believe they mentioned Dan Garrett's name. They
All
do definitely talk about Ted Cord, because his daughter, Jenny Cord, is the one that's helping Jaime.
Okay. And then it's his sister is the villain.
Yes.
Victoria, isn't it?
Yep.
Okay. So it didn't make very much money, did it?
Well, as of right now, it's at about 83 million.
Okay.
But it only cost 104 million to make.
Okay.
And everybody assumes that they doubled the amount on advertising, but I don't necessarily think they did.
Mm-hmm.
So if it stays in theater and can get over 100 million, which at this point it only needs 17 more million, it just did 12 this last weekend.
Okay.
I think it's possible. Globally, it did 12 million domestically, so right. I think it's possible.
But was that up to predictions or not up to predictions?
It was predicted to do between 25 and 30 opening weekend domestically. It did 25.5, but you had to take LA out of the race because of the storms.
Okay, right.
And LA accounts for about, depending on, it could be anywhere from 3 to 4 million.
Okay.
So it could have gotten closer to the high end. Now it'll be interesting to see what happens. Like this weekend, it's being thrown off because today was National Cinema Day.
Yeah.
Where all the tickets were $4.
Yeah.
So, there's a lot working against it, but I don't think it's doing great.
Right.
But I think it's doing okay. I wouldn't call it a flop because of what the actual expectations were, what the budget was. I think it has better potential at a sequel than probably anything else they've shown in a while.
Yeah. I'm sure somebody somewhere was hoping that it would be another Black Panther.
Of course.
Yeah.
Of course they did.
Yeah.
And word of mouth may still get out there.
Mm-hmm.
It's like this weekend, the only reason Gran Turismo took the top slot is they cheated.
Oh.
Normally, when you count the box office, you count previews. Previews are from Thursday at 2:00 to basically showings on Friday. So if you have a 2:00, 5:00, 7 showing, you count that total as part of Friday.
Oh, okay.
Well, Gran Turismo has been doing previews for 9 days.
Mm.
And they're counting all of that as part of Friday. So, they're counting an extra 5.3 million from previews. And in doing so, it pushed them past Barbie by about $200,000.
Oh.
So Barbie should have taken the number 1 spot, and Blue Beetle should have had the number 2.
Gotcha. Okay.
So,
what before I forget, what's your understanding or take on the strikes? As far as is this going to go on for a long time, or?
I think the studios are realizing they're losing ground. Mm-hmm. They've brought in a crisis manager, or PR crisis person,
mm-hmm.
because they realize they're looking like the bad guys.
Mm-hmm.
So I would give it comes down to, if one of the two breaks, it'll go quickly.
Yeah.
So if they make a deal with the writers, then the actors will follow suit and vice
Yeah.
versa.
Yep. That's
As
what
long as it's both of them, they'll hold out. But my guess is that probably going to wrap up before November.
Okay. Because if not, I mean, wow, things are just really going to fall apart way more. Whew.
Yeah. Nita asks thoughts on future MCU Black Panther. I think we're in a weird place with Black Panther. I think Wakanda Forever was a good movie, but not as good as the first one. It had a lot to do. It had to deal with the loss of Chadwick Boseman. It had to establish a new Black Panther. It had to establish a new villain in Namor. So it had a lot on its plate. I think it did it as well as could be expected, but it didn't do as well as the first Black Panther movie.
And I don't see how it could have. I just,
Right. So going forward, I think they're going to stay away from Black Panther as a standalone property through phase 6.
Mhm.
I think they need to have, if they're going to continue with Letitia Wright, then they need to have her interacting with the rest of the Avengers in Kang Dynasty and Secret Wars
Mhm.
and see if they could build up her profile and then do another solo movie with her.
Mhm.
Or they'll have to, if she doesn't catch on, fans don't take to her version of the character, then they may have to make another change.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's what's going to happen with a lot of the characters that have been introduced, the concepts that have been introduced. That the next time we see a lot of them is going to be those two Avengers movies. But we also have to remember that there, and I think this is what's going to happen is that we're going to still get this Wakanda TV series.
I don't think that's going to happen
You
anymore.
really don't think that's going to happen? Because I would have thought that would have been the place to go,
No,
to give way, give out more Wakanda, which I think there is an appetite for.
I think we're going to see less and less new TV shows.
Okay.
I think we'll get some of the ones that are already announced. I just don't think they're going to do a lot. I think they're going to scale back. They're trying to do cost cutting. We may get specials because those
Yeah.
have done really well,
Yeah.
but I don't think we're going to suddenly get, a whole new wave. They're not going to get to the point where every week we have a new MCU movie.
Well, I
It's going
kind
to
of
be
hope not. No.
it's going to be 2, 3 a year.
Yeah.
Um,
2 would be good, maybe.
well, I think 3 is a good number, but Daredevil is going to be so long, it may just be 2.
Yeah.
So, have you checked out the Invincible series on Prime?
I have not. No. Mm-mm.
I
I've
watched
never read the comic for that matter.
I read the comics and I watched the first episode
It's
when it
animated,
came.
right?
Yeah,
Okay.
and a great cast. I mean, it's J.K. Simmons, it's Stephen Yeun, it's Sandra Oh, Walter Goggins, just Clancy Brown, just a great cast.
You mean Clancy Brown of Ahsoka?
Yes, Clancy Brown of Ahsoka.
That Clancy Brown? Wow.
Um, so I watched the first one when it came out, and there's a twist in it having to do with his father.
Mm-hmm.
And I won't say what it is, even with the spoiler banner up. But this was a couple years ago it came out, and I couldn't deal with it. Even though I knew what the twist was, I'd read the comics. With having lost my own father not that much earlier, just couldn't.
Mm-hmm.
And I just stepped away from the series and didn't go back and didn't go back. And I know they're working on season 2, and everybody tells me it's such a good series that finally this weekend I've sat down, I've watched 3 more episodes, and they've got a second season coming up. They have a special with one of the characters that just came out, and it is a really good series.
Okay.
There's a lot of good stuff in it, a lot of homages to DC and Marvel. If you have Prime, it's worth giving it a shot.
Is it faithful to the comics?
Pretty much.
Okay.
Yeah. And like I said, some of the voice cast, Mahershala Ali is coming up as one of the characters. And so I mean they're and Seth Rogen, and because I think Seth is part of the team that put it together. But it's really well done.
Good to
So
hear.
I'm about halfway through season 1 and I'm liking it.
Good to hear.
So also I'm catching Only Murders in the Building season 3 has started.
Yeah, I did hear that. Yep.
I'm loving that. So and they did take care of the one problem they had, in that they create a conceit for the show that the three of them will only investigate murders that happen in their building.
Right.
The Arconia.
Yeah, and how many
think, well, how many people are going to die? Yeah, murdered in the building. Well, the end of last season, we see Paul Rudd die on stage in a theater. And it's like, well, how are they going to investigate that? He didn't die in the building.
Yeah.
They take care of that in the most bizarre way.
Okay. Time travel, right? It's all time travel.
No, it's even weirder.
Okay.
So, but I wanted to bring up one other thing before we sign off. And I don't know if you saw my post about it, but we're coming up to the 75th anniversary of the Hitchcock movie Rope.
Oh, yeah, and I did see that, and that's your favorite Hitchcock movie, right?
It is.
I have seen it, and I have seen it somewhat recently, and I'm not going to disagree with you or anything. Mine is Rear Window and always will be Rear Window, but yeah, it is actually a pretty fascinating. You can totally see that it's like a stage play.
Yeah, I mean, he tried to film it in one take.
Yeah,
And there's a debate. Some say he did it in two, because there's an obvious pan in on a coat and then back out. But other people say there was 10 cuts, and it's hard to find those 9 other cuts. None of them are as obvious as that one.
Yeah. 75 years.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, but I love that movie, and part of it is all the behind the scenes stuff on that. The fact that it's loosely based on Leopold and Loeb, and the fact that this was the first time Jimmy Stewart ever played a less than squeaky clean character.
Oh, I've heard that. Yes. Yeah.
That he wasn't the first choice. There was a lot of homosexual undertones in it.
Heard that too. Yep.
And they originally wanted Cary Grant, a closeted actor. And when he passed on it, they wanted Montgomery Clift, also a closeted actor. And then they ended up with Jimmy Stewart, who straight as can be.
Yes.
But it's just, it is such an interesting character for him. My brother, I think Jimmy Stewart's my brother's favorite actor.
Wow.
And he's never seen it. And I need to remedy that.
What?
You know, he's seen the Westerns, he's seen Harvey and It's a Wonderful Life and Mr. Smith Goes, and I don't think he's ever seen Rope.
Has he ever seen Rear Window?
He's seen Rear Window,
okay.
Yes.
All right. How do you rate Rear Window?
Oh, it is definitely up there.
Yeah. Okay, good.
Yeah. I am a huge Hitchcock fan. Growing up, I think Hitchcock and Agatha Christie were two of the biggest influence on my writing style. Because I tend to be more of a mystery writer, even though I write other genres.
Right.
There was always a mystery of some sort at the heart of my story. So, you know, Agatha Christie is probably the best whodunit writer of all time. And Hitchcock is the best thriller director of all time.
Wait, isn't there a new Is there a new Hercule Poirot movie?
In September, A Haunting in Venice,
That's it. Yeah.
which is not the actual title of the book.
Well, I was going to say that didn't sound right to me. Maybe that's what threw me.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember the name of the actual. It's not a very. Let me look it up real quick.
And is there an actual haunting in it? That doesn't sound like Agatha Christie, for that matter.
No, it's part of the mystery.
Okay.
It's not a horror movie. Lisa actually saw the trailer and went, I don't know. The actual story is from a 1969 novel called Halloween Party.
Ooh, that doesn't even sound familiar. I like that title better, but
Yeah. I've seen the David Suchet version of it.
Yeah.
And they moved it from this takes place in a small town in the United Kingdom to they're now moving it to Venice, Italy.
Okay.
So it's kind of weird that they didn't want to do one of the big travelogue films again.
Yeah.
Because they did Murder on the Orient Express and
Sure.
Death on the Nile. And
Sure.
the next one everybody does is Evil Under the Sun.
Right.
That would be the next logical one. And
Yeah.
they did want to do that. They also talked about doing was the Murder at Manor Place, I think it's called. It's the first Poirot novel. That's the other one they talked about. But then they decided on this one because they could change the tone a little bit.
Oh.
And keep it a little smaller.
Wait, now Ken Branagh has played Poirot before, right?
Yeah, he played in both.
Okay, he's in. Okay, so this is
Murder
his
on the Orient
third.
Express and Death on the Nile.
This is his third outing as. Okay, good.
As Poirot and as the director.
Wow.
And it's the same writer as the other two. So
Okay.
if you like the first two, it's going to continue.
Wow.
The cast on this one is pretty interesting because you get Tina Fey in one of the few recurring characters from Agatha Christie, which is Erdine Oliver, the mystery writer.
Okay.
That shows up in a lot of the books.
Which is like a stand-in for Agatha herself, like the author herself. Yeah.
So you get Tina Fey, who could come back, in the future episodes. And since they just killed Book in the last one, who was the kind of the stand-in, even though he was never in Death on the Nile, he was only in Murder on the Orient Express.
Mm-hmm.
They brought him back for the second one. But you also get Jamie Dornan, Kelly Riley, Michelle Yeoh. So it's a pretty interesting cast.
Yeah, those movies are. That's what they're pretty. That's what they're all about, right? Is to have those big, huge casts of all these.
Well, this one is definitely smaller, though.
Okay.
They do tone it down a bit. Like I said, you only have probably 3 or 4 big name people, where in the other ones it's like everybody's a big name person.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So in a way, I think if they can successfully transfer to this style, then I think it'll keep going because they could do the smaller budget films.
Yeah, sure.
And because there's a lot of material to go from, but there weren't that many big ones.
Yeah.
So, and the last one didn't do great, but partly because it was still coming off of COVID.
Yeah.
And you had Armie Hammer in it.
Yeah.
So there's a lot, it got delayed and but you had Gal Gadot and she did a great job in it. You had Letitia Wright, you had Russell Brand.
Wasn't Daisy Ridley in one of them?
Daisy Ridley was in Murder on the Orient Express.
The first one. Yeah, that's right. Okay. That's what I thought. Yeah.
Yeah, and Johnny Depp and Derek Jacobi, Judi Dench.
Wow, all-star
Olivia Colman. Oh yeah. So I love both of those movies. Murder on the Orient Express is such a gorgeous movie.
So you're looking forward to this one?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I haven't actually been to the theater for a lot of movies. I mean, I went and saw Ant-Man in the theater. I don't think I've seen anything in the theater since, but I will probably get over to the theater for this one. So yeah, I know I'm a comic book geek, but murder mysteries are my jam.
Quite all right. You can be excused.
So yep. If there was more Hitchcock movie, one of the earliest movies my parents ever took me to see in the theater. The first was Superman.
Mm-hmm.
The second was Family Plot, the last Hitchcock film.
Oh, is that right? Wow.
So,
Many years ago, I had the pleasure to see both Rear Window and Vertigo in a theater. And I still to this day don't care much for Vertigo, but boy was that something to see Rear Window as it was meant to be, seen. And I had seen it on TV how many times, but the chance to see it in the theater was really something. That's a movie that I could just watch over and over and over again. It's like The Adventures of Robin Hood with Errol Flynn. If that comes on, I see it's on TV, on TCM or whatever, doesn't matter. I sit down and watch it. And Rear Window is one of those movies.
what's funny is Jimmy Stewart was a big star before Rope, but he was never a big bankable star. After Rope, the stuff he started doing started making the big money, and he got into the top 10 grossing actor suddenly, and part of it was having to do with Hitchcock, and he came out of Rope swearing he
was
would
that
never
his
do
first?
another. That's the first one he did with
That
Hitchcock.
was his first Hitchcock movie? Okay, gotcha. Okay.
And he swore he would never do another one.
And
then he did Rear Window and Vertigo, and they were huge money makers for him.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and then there was another director he would work with who did westerns that gave him the darker characters in westerns. And between Hitchcock and this other director, that's where he really started making the money.
Yeah.
So it's just kind of funny.
Yeah.
So, all right, we have been all over the place today.
That's par for the course, man.
Oh yeah, that's some of the best episodes,
Right. And we certainly didn't plan this one out. We had no time in the green room before.
No. But we usually don't plan them out either.
I know. Sometimes you do. You'll go, we're going to talk about this, and this. And I say, okay. And then I just forget it all, and I just go wherever my brain goes.
I do like kind of just throwing things at you to see where we go.
That's fine with me. I like that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I got a little checklist coming in the show, like, here's some topics, and then just see where it goes.
I tried to do that segue into Ahsoka. I thought, I'm going to try this. It's because it occurred to me. It's like, wow, we're talking about heavy metal and rock and stuff like that. I'm like, this is perfect.
It worked. We got into Ahsoka.
Yeah. No, I know. Good. Yeah.
So
every once in a while it'll work for me.
We should wrap it up. Thank you, Jim. Always fun. Thank you to What is the New Galaxy has its own Jedi Order. That's interesting. What if the new galaxy has its own Jedi Order? Let's save that for next week.
That would, because that's pretty huge.
Yeah. So thank you, Nita, Disinferno, and everybody else for tuning in. We will see you next week. Have a